right. Don't see the camera moving. Camera up. Okay, now it's moving. Okay. All right, guys. This is sergeant's class. Again, I kind of went over a little bit of stuff before we jumped into it. Today we're just going to cover chapter 3. It's not going to be a super long class, maybe 30 minutes at most. We're going to cover apparatus safety and operating emergency vehicles. Again, I assume if you're in this class, you're already kind of riding up, already driving fire trucks. So you guys kind of already know some of the rules and just the basics, right? All right, just some of the course objectives. Again, I'm going to kind of skip through some slides that don't really need to be talked about as much, but I will stop and talk about things we need to talk about. For us as career firefighters here in Louisville, you know, we have a minimum time in service that that you have to even take your sergeant's exam and any type of promotional exam. You know, we do a written test, we do performance evaluations, things like, and oral interviews to get you to those ranks, all right? Becoming a sergeant is not just a big step when it comes to payroll. It's a big step in responsibility. It's a big step in leadership. It's a big step in just stepping into the role in the firehouse where you're no longer, you know, a firefighter. You know, your responsibilities grow. You're no longer just cleaning the toilets, you know, make sure the trash is taken out. You are in a role of subordinate development. You're in a role of responsibility for other crew members. And you need to have not only the experience, but a working knowledge and the maturity level about yourself that is going to not only protect everybody else, but keep you safe as well. You know, we're driving fire trucks on emergency runs, and we have a lot of responsibility at our fingertips with that apparatus. NFPA, those standards are in place for reasons. One, they're guidelines, they're tools, they're basically rules that we follow to keep ourselves accountable. You will see some of those on your testing for the guys who are going to be taking that driver's operator exam. So be sure to study those and look at those. It's the year 2022. Everybody has cell phones. Everybody has iPads. Everybody has all these mobile computer devices that are huge distractions. Not just us, as in like having iPads in the apparatus that can kind of help us on where to get going, where our runs are, where hydrants are. But I mean, even people on the road, you know. So as we're out there as drivers of these expensive, big apparatus, we got to be smart, you know. Know your district. Try to avoid looking at your cell phone while driving. You know, communicate with your other members in the truck. Do what you can to focus on the road, right? These are just some keys to being successful as a sergeant. Here with Louisville Fire Department, you know, we follow state and federal guidelines when it comes to operating on the road. Those will be some things that you want to keep in mind when testing, when driving. List driving regulations. Again, here are some of those. So you got the NFPA standards, you have your city standards, state and local provinces. All those traffic regulations that we kind of hone in on, things that kind of keep us safe, but also keep the public safe, right? When driving an emergency, we do have exemptions. You know, we have certain speed limits that we can exceed. You know, we can exceed 15 miles over the speed limit while responding to emergency in good conditions. You know, it's raining outside today. Today's probably not one of those good conditions. We can obviously travel in the different directions on the roads. You know, we can buck one ways. We can park different ways. We don't have those civilian rules that we have to follow, but still we have to operate within a certain amount of rules, right? When driving these apparatus, we want to always drive with due regard. I always say we are defensive drivers, right? We have lights, we have sirens. Sure, we might think everybody needs to get out of our way, people need to get to the side, but in this culture, in today's age, we're always wrong, no matter what, right? We're trying to do the right thing, but all it takes is one person, to say, well, I saw this fire truck, it had a big 7 on the back of it, and, next thing you know, you're writing letters, you're in trouble, things like that. All right, so always drive with due regard to public safety. Detect some reasons for accidents. Consequences. There are consequences to us getting in accidents while driving. You're responding to emergency, you get in an accident. Not only does that delay a response for that emergency run, you got to start another apparatus. You also got to bring in the battalion chief, police. You got to do run reports, write letters. It's a financial burden to the department, but it also can involve litigation. You could be sued. We do have some firemen, some sergeants who are currently in lawsuits just for accidents they had. You're not always protected by the department. There are things that you can still be in trouble for, right? So just think about those consequences. Intersections, I think we all know this. Intersections are the most common place for collisions to occur. I would probably think a question like that's going to pop up on the test for sure. Nowadays, again, it goes back to the distractions. We're all distracted drivers. I don't care if you say you're not at all. Music's up loud, texting and driving, baby in the back, car seat crying, anything you can think of. We have so many ways that we're distracted while driving. It's on us to maintain that situational awareness, no traffic laws, be aware as you're approaching intersections. Nowadays, at least with the city, there's traffic cameras at almost every intersection. They're all over the place. We've had some guys recently, who found that out the hard way, that they're watching. I've also got word that headquarters downtown, they're receiving videos of us crossing through intersections, basically, just put it that way. They're getting videos of us doing nothing wrong just because they think we're doing something wrong, if that makes sense. Did you roll through a light that was turning red and things like that? So they're watching us at all times. Again, like I said, in this environment, we're always wrong. All right? Backing up apparatus. This is, again, it seems very common. We do it every day. I would say we probably back up an apparatus, all the runs we make in a day, 100 times a day, apparatus is getting backed up, right? We gotta be smart, be vigilant, use your spotters, use your mirrors, no excessive speed while backing up, even if it is a common thing, like, hey, I backed into this bay every day, for 5 years. I know where I'm supposed to be. I know my marks. Don't just rest on that, We've had guys recently, who've ran into vehicles parked on fire ramps, and I bet you their spotters were just getting out and walking backwards. They had their back turned to the apparatus was rolling, spotters weren't in place, right? Be smart, be vigilant. Need to just consider some of the reckless acts that you can do while driving, right? Speeding excessively, following too close, not only just to a civilian vehicle, but following too close to another apparatus, pulling out of a double house. We usually follow each other to the scene. Don't anticipate that apparatus in front of you to roll through a light. It might turn yellow on them and you think, oh, they're gonna roll through that, I'm good. They might hit the brake. They might come to a complete stop. Give yourself that lead time. Give yourself that braking time, right? Again, excessive speeding, it makes it a little bit more difficult to stop. You can lose control. And then you also have the possibility of brake fade. If you're making that long run, you might be going from Broadway down to Shively, on a box run, making a fire, and you're hitting every red light. You're dodging traffic. You got to be aware of that brake fade where your brakes get too hot. They start to lose that control on stopping. Use those auxiliary brakes. Use that engine. What is it called? Jake brake. The Jake brake. Sorry, thank you. Use your Jake brake. Let it slow itself down. You don't always have to ride those brakes. I know here at Louisville Fire Academy we have a training course. I'm not for sure about Shively. Oh, y'all come down here? Okay, good. Sorry, I should have known that. We have that training course. We put in. Sometimes it's rushed. Sometimes you're down there. days on end till you get used to that apparatus. When you guys become sergeants, you're just as much in charge of getting someone certified as the captain, right? So when you're down there, not only with just yourself, but as subordinate development, put them through tough situations. Don't just be like, hey, back down this alley. Make it tough for them. Because once you get on the street, there aren't cones you're hitting anymore, right? You're hitting a pedestrian, you're hitting a tree, hitting a pole, something like that. And it's a time for us as firefighters, sergeants, whatever, to stay familiar with vehicles, right? Getting certified on a bunch of different equipment is a good thing, but also you don't touch that equipment every day. You might get certified on a hook and ladder just because you were trying to get truck certified and they sent you to truck 1 or truck 3, and then here comes an opportunity for you to take overtime and you haven't touched a hook and ladder in 3 years. You got certified, got promoted, got moved around, and they're like, hey, we need you to go over and drive truck 3. Speak up. Be like, hey, Cap, it's been a while since I drove. Can we get down to drill school and let me just kind of feel comfortable before we get on the road? And I'm speaking from experience. I was that guy. Got certified real quick on a hook and ladder, didn't touch one for a while, worked overtime there. Wasn't a smart decision, right? Be smart, speak up, get familiar with those vehicles. Overloading modifications, that's not something we really have to worry about as much. That's more of a shop thing. We don't do a lot of modifications and overloading. Major Downs and his crew deal with most of that stuff, so nothing really there. Pre-trip inspections. Kind of that aligns with just your morning checks, but not just your morning checks, but also looking at your apparatus throughout the day. You just walk through the bay, kind of walk around it, leaving a med run, leaving a fire scene, looking at your apparatus. If you notice anything, don't be afraid to write things up. Don't put it on another shift. I mean, how many times have we come in and noticed something, we didn't get to tackle it, and then it came through the next shift, and then we returned back to work and it still was in the same position, right? Don't be the guy that's just, I know changeover sucks. I know it's just a hassle at times, but writing things up, it might get pushed to the next day anyway. You write it up, the shop can decide like, hey, we need that right now. Or they might be like, hey, that can hold off, have them bring it down in the morning, we'll take care of it, Write things up. Poor vehicle design could be a cause for serious fire accidents. Both departments, Louisville and Shively, we really don't have to worry about that as much. I think Shively's about to be all Seagrave here soon, is what they were saying. We're Seagrave, we also have the shop. Our vehicle maintenance is pretty strong, so not something we really have to worry about when it comes to things like that. This is a big one. Impairment, it's easy right now being fireman, not having that big responsibility of driving a fire truck every day. You might go to a Super Bowl party, come in, you're like, dang, man, I drank a little bit too much last night, too many beers. And then you're just sitting in the back of the fire truck. You step in that role as a sergeant, you have the responsibility of all your crew members at your hands, right? You come in, me as a captain, and I look at you or you tell me like, Cap, I ain't feeling good, man. I think I had too much drink. All right, you might want to grab one of your firemen and ask if they'll drive for you. We're not paying them, so you might want to give them $25 today or something, right? But what I'm saying with that is it keeps not only you safe, but it keeps everybody else safe. We can handle things like that. Don't push the envelope and sit behind the wheel and then pull out that firehouse, at 8:05 and then you hit somebody. All of us are going to be in a lot of trouble then, all right? Be smart. Those other things come into play too, fatigue, depression, death in the family, basically your mental health just as well as everything else. Let's see what we got there. Oh, that last sentence, man. That last sentence, it kind of rings true. Rude gestures, shouting, and using your horn to express anger are inappropriate actions. Inappropriate, right? Again, it goes back to civilians. They freeze up, they don't know what to do when they hear us coming, see us coming, they're distracted and they don't know that we're right there on their ass, right? It's not gonna benefit any of us, lay on that horn, throw our hands up, all it takes, again, is one civilian to be like, oh, that fire truck put 17 on it, called downtown. Oh, they flicked me off when they were going by. They would, they laid on their horn. I had a sleeping baby in the car. Whatever, I don't know. It takes a minute thing to make a big situation, right? When I first got the truck one, Major Weber now was Captain Weber then. He had to pull me aside after, I don't know, I might have been there like maybe a month. And he was like, dude, you got some road rage. And I was like, no, man. I was like, they're just idiots. They won't get out of the way. He goes, yeah, but they don't know that. You're sitting here losing your mind in this fire truck, laying on the horn and all that stuff. So I had to look back and be like, yeah, you're right, man. It's not really affecting anybody but me, But yeah, you never know, You never know what day somebody's having. And like, again, all it takes is a phone call, Apparatus rider safety. Again, with promotions, you become more responsible for your crew members, right? I can guarantee you, if you're going to get promoted, all your interviews are going to have some type of safety question in it. What more could you do for the safety of your members? What more could you add to your firehouse to protect each other, right? Seatbelts, these new apparatus and all that, they chime and ding all day long. We still got a lot of the older ones that don't, but when you're driving, all it takes is just some verbal communication. Hey, everybody good back there? Everybody safe? I know when boxes and things like that come in, box alarms, guys are kind of just jumping on there, throwing the gear up there, getting dressed as we go. I'm not telling you not to do that. I wouldn't. I would never tell you not to do that. I'm just saying be aware. That comes down to the way you're driving, road conditions, avoiding speed bumps, things like that. All it takes is one little moment for you to lose control of that apparatus and the guy's falling over as he's getting ready. That's a lot of letters, a lot of explaining to do. There he is, look, confirmation must be verified verbally, right? How many times has your sergeant been like, everybody good? Everybody on? Right? 1 second, that's all it takes. Loading large diameter hose. It's probably like the only time we get to actually be on the apparatus while it's in motion on the outside, right? Hose change, fire in the middle of the night, you laid 500 feet in the back alley. You got to back up to each section. Big thing there is just taking those small moments to make sure spotters are in place. You got any scene lights you might need to use so you can have some visibility, and keeping that speed down. You don't need to be backing up more than 5 miles per hour. If you're, these fire trucks, they move pretty easily on their own. Just kind of letting your foot off the brake alone is going to give you enough speed. Keep those spotters in sight when moving. Make sure guys are actually like sitting down and not standing up on the fire truck. Unfortunately, we're not garbage men. We don't get to ride on the outside anymore. It's not the 70s. I think we would probably get a lot more firemen on the job if they seen us rolling down, Broadway or Main Street, hanging on the back of a fire truck, but you never know. All our cabs nowadays are fully enclosed. We don't have many jump seat, open cabs. We got some old auxiliaries that kind of sit in bays, but we don't use them as frontline stuff. But if you find yourself in one, seatbelt yourself in. Simple as that, right? Anybody in here hook and ladder certified? Tillers? Nobody? Oh, missing out, guys. You gotta get certified on hook and ladder, man. It's fun. When it comes to those, again, if you're sitting in that tiller, seatbelts, make sure you got some eye protection if needed, your headset's on, just take those precautions when sitting back there. Not really gonna go through that too much. Starting, idling, and shutting down apparatus, you guys kind of know what that's kind of about, just avoiding shutting down your apparatus while it's in motion, having apparatus idle in the bays without exhaust vents set up. Understand, where your exhaust is facing, get on a med run or something like that and you're outside, don't position yourself where you're standing right next to your exhaust. Simple things. As good now as firemen, but even better as sergeants, knowing your district, knowing where things are, understanding, how to get around, road closures that might come up, traffic congestions, if you're working, like for us, if you're working downtown, like Engine 5 Tower 2, every day, Monday through Friday, between like 4, maybe 5, 6 o'clock, it's going to be congested downtown. You know, making med runs, left and right, alarms, you're dealing with traffic, right? So the more comfortable you are knowing your area, the more comfortable you can be in that seat too. You're not second guessing yourself, you know where to get to, and things like that. But that's things you can be working on even as just a fireman, not just as a sergeant. Again, this is just talking about fuel, diesel fuel, particulates, DEF, which is all those newer apparatus use that. You know, the new regen systems burn a little bit hotter, you know, so you don't have to use that exhaust. Burns a little bit cleaner. Like I said, we're going to skip through that. Again, never shut off your engine when the apparatus is in motion. And we'll keep moving on. Mirrors, goes back to the mirrors here, your blind spots. You know, we all have 3 shifts, so we have multiple drivers, right? We have assigned sergeants, we have acting sergeants. Anybody can be driving the day before you get in, right? Get in that seat, adjust your mirrors, make sure you know where your blind spots are. Like take that 5 seconds to jump up there, you know, kind of look at it. Okay, that's good. Have a firefighter run to the other side, man. Can you pull that mirror for me? Just a little bit, because all it takes is, you know how the tones go off at 7:45 and your gear's not even on track, you throw everything on and you just pull out. You know, if everything's kind of not to your liking, yeah, you're probably not going to have a problem, but all it takes is that one time, right? Adjust those mirrors, make sure you know where your blind spots are, do a quick walk around, things like that. Automatic transmissions, no decisions about, we don't have to worry about any of that. We're all in newer apparatus. We're not downshifting much. We're not worried about shifting gears. Air apparatus, quints, straight bed trucks, our tower. You know, when you're driving those larger vehicles, you know, you got to worry about a lot more. You know, you got to worry about your angle of approach. Worry about your tip. You know, how far out is that when you're driving? You know, I don't think they do it as much anymore. Like some of the old guys used to have like a string or a piece of wood or something hanging from the tip of their ladder just so they can kind of see it dangling, because you know you couldn't always see it when you're driving. The swing radius, you know, with that tower, it kicks out like crazy. It's got an extra 5 to 10 feet that it swings out when you're turning. So you got to know that when you're on those tight streets. End up like me, man. You wrecked the tower one time, you know, sheesh. Happens. Especially, you know, cars parked illegally, you know. Hey, it's his fault. Nah, I was playing. But you got to be aware of that. You know, truck 8, it's kind of crooked in the rear, like it sits off to the left some when you back it up, you know. Those are things you just got to know about your apparatus. You know, don't just jump up there. And again, that goes back to familiarizing yourself, you know, understanding how it works, knowing how that rear axle and your pivot point when you're making turns and things like that. Follow the laws of inertia, weight transfer. You know, we have apparatus that carry 500 plus gallons of water. You know, understand that while you're driving. You can't be, you know, 2-wheel driving on these turns, you know. Can't whip them like that. Let's see, that's manual shifting, downshifting. We don't do that as much anymore. Bridges and overpasses, railroad tracks. Again, that goes back to just understanding your district, knowing the clearance levels. You know, don't always trust the sign. You know, it might say clearance is 11 foot 10 inches, right? And you're like, oh, we got that, we're good. But they just paved the road last week, right? Is it really 11 foot 10 inches then? You don't know, right? So when you're just out and about, you know, take different directions to the store, get out and check the second alarm. It takes nothing but to get your guys to be like, hey man, get out and spot me while we're going in this overpass. You know, just see if we can clear it so we know we're good, you know, because when you're on emergency, you're not going to take that time. So do that. Railroad tracks. One, know where your crossings are. You know if they have lights, if they have, what are those called? The gates, thank you. See, man, you want to teach this class? No, they, know the gate, that they have gates, but also know how to get around them, right? You know, 17's over here, if they're rolling west on Garland, they can see all the crossings. But their only way to get around them is to go north, go up to Broadway, then go back west to come back south, right? Know that. Know those about your districts, okay? Adverse weather conditions. We're in one today, rainy weather. A few weeks ago, it was snow and ice. You know, Know what you got to do as a sergeant to operate your vehicle safely in those situations. Rainy day, if you got the throttle down on that Jake brake, you don't want it high. Snow, ice, chains, knowing how to put chains on correctly. You don't want to have those teeth turned inside, on your wheels, tear up your wheels, and it's not giving you much traction. Make sure you're using that wire to hold those spiders and things in place. We recently had a company who was just responding on a emergency run, and had a piece of their chains pop off and hit their mirror as they were riding down. Probably scared the shit out of them because it shattered everything as they're just responding to a run. So just understand those weather conditions as you're driving. Let's see. This goes back to civilians again. The appropriate reaction is to pull over to the right, stop, clear the intersection, remain motionless. Most of the time, none of that happens. They're usually trying to outrun us, or they're not paying attention, so they're just driving right in front of us. You just got to be, drive with caution, be a defensive driver in that situation, and do your best to avoid any type of collisions. Have a plan, leave yourself an out is a big one. You don't have to always position yourself where you're kind of stuck in somewhere. You got to back out. You get trapped in by EMS, because Lord knows they will always trap you in. Know your response area. If you make a common area, like if you're making the same apartment complex, every day, you don't have to always pull in there, right? Like, hey, we're going to stay out here on the street, Cap. Grab your bag, walk in, right? If you might have to go a block south and put yourself pointing in a different direction so you can clear out. Leave yourself an out, right? Keep your eyes moving. Keep your head on a swivel. Always be alert of what's going on around you. Again, a bunch of distractions in the fire truck. We're laughing, we're goofing off, we're having good times, we're telling stories, talking to each other. Heck, some guys even play music, in the cab, right? So as a driver, as a sergeant, sometimes you got to take yourself out of the situation. You might be like, hey, Cap, I don't mind if you play music, you turn it down some a little bit. Or, you might not get to join in all the laughter, looking back and seeing what guys are doing in the back. You got to keep your eyes on the road, all right? That's almost leave yourself out instead of leave in out, right? Take yourself out of the situation. We have the audible and visual alarms. They're to make the public aware of us coming. Again, a lot of them don't catch it, don't see it, aren't paying attention. Obviously, we use those in emergency runs. Be aware of your speed. If you're up on the expressway, up on the Waterson, up on 64 or something like that, like be aware of how fast you're going, and are you outrunning that siren? Are you outrunning your alarms? Okay. In-cab intercoms, love them. Good pros, good con, some cons in there as well. As a driver, you're trying to hear ambient noise, other apparatus coming, semi truck who might be honking his horn because he lost his brakes, as he's coming through an intersection or something, or he's, if you're using those comms, those intercoms, I know at least most ones I've used, the sergeant ones always had like one ear that wasn't operable or something. I don't know if we did that ourselves or if it was just how it was, but like you can hear transmission in one, but then the other one's completely clear. So most of the time I would just leave that one off, just so you can hear. But they're great. They're great for communication. They're great for hearing runs. If you're out in a noisy area, or you're just on a noisy fire engine, you can still hear that run come in. You're not yelling over at your captain like, what is it? I don't know how many of y'all have been, I don't know how y'all operate, in the captain's chair trying to yell at your sergeant some information. Like it just doesn't usually go well. Turn right up here. What? Fuck. Well, we missed that turn. Just keep going, man. Keep going, right? Just more on lights there. Let's see. Again, intersections, your green lights, proceed with due caution, kind of come back down to the speed limit if you can, but don't always trust the green light. Think about people who make those right-hand turns on red. Some of them don't even brake when they're coming up. To them, they don't see a bunch of traffic coming through. They think it's clear, and here you're coming up, and they just pull right out in front of you. Be aware of that. If you're in an area that has the the crosswalks and all those signs, look at those too as you're approaching those intersections. Kind of, you see that counting down, your light's probably going to be changing soon or something like that. So just be aware. Somebody might be stepping out there on the street. Red lights. Again, we talked about that a little earlier. I would just warn you to stop completely. It's becoming real dangerous out there at those intersections. Watch out for the other responding apparatus. We just spoke on that as well. And if you're unsure, just stop. I know we're all trying to get to this fire scene or wherever we're going, but again, if we hit each other, that's even more of a cluster, right? I'm sure we've all been in those situations. Those controlled traffic signals in front of firehouses, some of us have them, some of us don't. Don't rely on them. That's just simple as that. Don't rely on them. Think about this. We could probably sit on our ramps and see the same people all day long, same cars. Most people who are crossing through our areas either live in our areas or take that same route every day. They see that red blinking light all day. To them, that's just a warning that a fire station is there. If it's solid red, they're not even going to notice it's probably solid red. To them, it's a fire station up there. They're going to run right through there. All it takes is you pulling out 12 feet that day instead of 10 feet, and there you are, nose to nose with a kid on a bike, a car or anything. So don't always rely on that. Kind of ease out into your ramp, make sure roadways are clear, things like that. Know the status is the part. Okay, we're good. Safe passing. We do have to avoid passing when we can. Always try to pass on the right, travel in the innermost lane. I know y'all can see that up there, but just be cautious when you're passing. Use your mirrors. Maybe even have your firefighter behind you look down, make sure nobody's sitting right underneath you in your blind spot. There's a lot of small vehicles out there. When you're in those intersections too, be careful when you're making those left, right-hand turns. We're clearing the intersection, and somebody behind us might not be paying attention, or they're just in such a rush that they're thinking, I can get around this fire truck while they're trying to wait. And then you make a right-hand turn, there they are right there on your right-hand side, So just be aware when you're doing that, any of those type of things. Stopping and braking. Excessive and abrupt braking, again, I talked about skidding before we started the class, but just be aware again about that brake fade and using your Jake brake and your engine brake and all that type of stuff. Like, balance yourself out. That's going to come with getting out there and driving your apparatus every day. Knowing how it responds, how quick. I remember when we got those new Quints, and I was getting certified on Quint 10. Came from 17s, older apparatus. Jake brake, I thought was pretty fine. Jumped on one of those Quints, that thing damn near stopped me on the expressway. It was like, you got to just know how those apparatus work. Visual lead time. Driving ahead of yourself, not just driving right in front of you. Look ahead at what's going on, intersections, traffic, things like that. Giving yourself enough time to determine how long it's going to take me to stop if I need to stop. Surveying the speeds ahead of you and things like that, okay? Again, this talks about just some things that might affect the ability to stop, road conditions, speed of your apparatus, the weight of your apparatus. I think our smallest apparatus is 48,000 pounds. That's Squirt 17, and then we're up in the 70,000 pounds with all our bigger apparatus, right? Knowing that about your apparatus, okay? Some more skid stuff. Still skidding. Service our brakes. That's a lot of this stuff is on the shop. Again, they come out and service our brakes. Seems like pretty regularly, so we know those usually should be in a good standard. Loss of vehicle control, due to driver error. Driving too fast for road conditions, failing to anticipate any obstacles. Again, that improper use of your auxiliary brakes, and then improper maintenance of tire pressures. I remember I was brand new. I asked the question. I was like, dude, why do we wash the fire truck every day? I was like, they just washed it yesterday. Why are we washing it again? And I had an old sergeant, but he was awesome. I loved him. He goes, man, I always get to check the apparatus if we wash it. I kind of get around it, get to see the tires, get to see what's going on. And I don't know, kind of opened my eyes to it. It's like, oh, okay, it's just your way of doing a check, like getting an inspection done, you know. And kid you not, there was a couple times we would come in where fire truck would almost be looking like it's flat because somebody else, you know, that inner dual wasn't checked and they didn't know. They were just sitting there. They didn't make too many runs that day, and there you go. Always inspect your apparatus. Again, we already talked about backing up. You know, use those spotters. Don't solely rely on your backup cameras for those newer apparatus. You know, it's not a Honda Civic with a backup camera or something like that. You know, use your mirrors. It's a big apparatus. Again, spotters, hand signals, reflective vests if you're in a busy traffic area. You know, if you're on the expressway, on, I don't know, what is that? I'm trying to think of a Shively, busy street down there in Shively. You know, if you're just out there on a busy street, you know, huh? Yeah, there you go, Dixie Highway, there we go. And that's gonna come down to you, you know, like as a sergeant, you can easily say, man, hey, throw a road vest on, you know, or put yours on, you know, I don't know. Use the appropriate amount of members, you know, if you need to, throw two out there. If you need your captain to step out there because you need someone in the front because you're making a turn as you're backing up, be like, hey, Cap, you get out there and make sure we don't hit this car. Keep everything in sight. You know, if you don't see them, stop. Simple as that. You know, visible in the driver's side mirror. This just talks about maybe thinking about keeping a towel or something up there with you. You know, rainy day like this, and then you got to back up. Your mirror's all wet. You know, you might need to wipe it down real quick. Something like that. Those are the hand signals. All right. This is just talking about those tiller operations. You know, like none of you all have actually got to do it yet. But you get a chance to get out there and get on one, man. Get out there and get down here and learn it. It's two heads trying to drive one apparatus. You know, we're very privileged nowadays to have headsets and those comms where we can communicate, but you jump on one of our old auxiliaries, all you got is a buzzer. You know, that's all you got. Biggest thing with those is just communication, working together, you know, maintaining awareness, and really just understanding your assignment, you know. If you're driving the front, you know, help your guy out in the rear as much as you can. You know, don't take tight turns like that and where he's trying to kick his ass end out and not hit this car that's sitting right there. You missed it, but he can't get his shit around enough fast enough, right? Yeah. Describe driving exercise methods. It's just those steps you go through, you know, training, evaluation. We're almost done here. Some of the steps we go through to get promoted, man. You know, practical driving exercises, coming down here, driving the course as much as possible until you're getting checked off. Me, as a new training captain down here, since I've been here in October, I've maybe done 5 or so, you know, getting people checked off so they can drive on the street. That's a responsibility of me though, right? Like, I know it's a common thing, where unwritten rule, you know, like, yeah, he's good, Cap. He's good to go. But if I sign that paper and he pulls out of here and wrecks that day, they're gonna be like, dang, man, what'd he do down there? Oh yeah, he really hit like 6 cones and, you know, struggled to back up on a serpentine. But, you know, you're responsible for things like that. So even as sergeants, you're gonna be that first guy who's Cap's gonna be like, he's been working, Sarge? Yeah, he's good to drive. We'll take him down there. You know, that's on you. You know, then your road test, getting 10 hours of street time, hook and ladder, 10 in the front, 10 in the back. You know, there are situations where, you know, you kind of get blessed off on some times, but, you know, still familiarize yourself. Written test, that's just what you guys be doing to get to the next level. Oh, see, same slide twice. Working safely on and around fire apparatus. Okay. Compartment doors. Again, you are responsible for everything that's going on when it comes to the fire truck, right? You're going to make sure it's in a ready state. You know, you can walk around, do a quick walk around, make sure the doors are closed. Again, these newer apparatus, they got all these alerts and stuff like that. They let you know, oh, rear compartment doors open. But, you know, some of these older ones don't, you know, and some of them don't secure all the way, or, you know, they're a little fickety or whatever. So get out there and check those. Obviously, there could be some injuries with those, but also you can lose equipment. right? Rolling down the street, door pops open, you don't even know it. There goes your fire extinguisher. You know, and you're sitting there praying somebody brings it back to the firehouse, or, you know, you got to write it up or something like that. Never step down on an open compartment. I think that goes without being said. You know, if you're climbing down from the top of a fire truck, don't rely on a compartment to hold you up. Having a second person present, you know, always use slip resistant surfaces. You know, a lot of those steps and things like that, you know, protect you from slipping and falling. All hose are secured to apparatus. There have been plenty of instances where, you know, cross lays, nozzles, 5 inches have fallen off. You're smiling, I guess you've been a part of one or know of one. But, you know, one I recall is engine 19 on the Watterson.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay, see? They lost all their 5-inch. All of it fell out of the bed. Yeah. Yeah, it came out. They're about maybe 2 miles down the road before they even realized it. All their 5 inches in the road. And, you know, cars try to avoid it, hitting each other, a couple car fires. You know, I had to call in, I think Shively was there, Engine 22, 6s, whatever. There was a couple different companies who had to respond. But that led to, again, you know, just trying to take those precautions. You know, nets across the hose bed. You know, if you're at a firehouse like 17's who has a different type of lay, you know, you want to make sure that lay, you want to just peek at that in the morning. You know, especially if you know, like, hey, we had a fire last night, we laid off 300 feet. You know, it might not be put back on correctly or secure. You know, it sucks. You know, 8 o'clock in the morning, you're pulling 5-inch off just to load it back on correctly. But I'd rather do that than it happen on me, it pop out on me, right? Oh, sorry about that. Again, knowing the type of hose lays, or not hose lays, but like the hose beds you have, you know, those new quints are all in the chute. Like, it's all inside. Like I said, 17's has a little trifold because they have that big base in there. I don't know if the new like Engine 9 and all that have a special lay or not, but just knowing how your hose has to be placed so it's safe in there. Storing the equipment in the cab, again, that goes back to just checking on your members, making sure they're good and safe back there. But while you're doing your morning checks, you know, make sure SCBAs are secure, make sure your axis hooks that you have in the cabs are secure. You know, people leave out the med bag and the O2 bottle and stuff like that, but those things can bounce around, you know, it can create injuries. Just be aware of those things. Hydraulic fuel, you know, hydraulic fluids and hydraulic extrication tools. Just be sure to use proper PPE, you know, when using anything like that. That's pretty standard and basic. Check for trap pressure before removing caps. You know, if you're on an engine, there are pressure buildup behind those things. You know, you don't want to be standing right in front of that. You know, if you can bleed them off or slowly open them up so they can bleed themselves off. Just anything that's going to avoid injury. And fellas, that was a good class. I think that was a really good class. Good job. Everybody stayed awake.